Well, it's that time of year again. Everything is
Pumpkin.
pumpkin spice this, pumpkin spice that.
There's pumpkin spice everything.
And today on this channel, never, ever, ever will you see a pumpkin beer. Hey folks, today's recipe comes from the blog Shut Up About Barclay Perkins, written by Ron Pattinson. Now Ron is primarily a writer and historian of English and UK beers, and I brew a lot of them, hence the Union Jack in the back. And yes, I know it's printed backwards. I bought it at a Scottish store. Maybe they did it on purpose. But Ron moved to Amsterdam many years ago, and he's been delving into some Dutch-style beers. This is one of them today. This is a 1956 Amstel Stout. Now, the only thing I know about Amstel is Amstel Light. I remember that commercial. They brew, what, light lagers and pilsners or something like that? Well, according to Ron, Dutch Stout was a style with a long history in Holland, predating lager brewing. He says several large-scale lager brewers produced a bottom fermenting version. Among them was Amstel. He also goes on to say, compared to Heineken's pre-war dark beers, the grist is pretty simple. Just Pilsner malt, Klaarmout, and that translates to color malt, and a bit of caramel. Now when we're talking caramel in brewing, a lot of times in historic recipes, we're talking about a coloring agent, not a crystal kind of malt. So my strike temperature is right where it's supposed to be. It's time to crush the grains and dough in. What happened? Oh no! What is going on here? Okay, here's where I put No Stress Brewing to the test. My grain mill isn't crushing the grains. Stand by. So I adjusted the gap on my mill recently, and I probably just should have gone ahead and taken the whole thing apart and given it a good cleaning, and I didn't. So I'm wasting time during brew day doing that right now. Okay, here's what I suspected. Dust and dirt has built up on the ends of the roller, and it's just not spinning the way it should. So I'm going to get a little bit of light oil, clean that off, clean this off, clean that, and then put it back together. I'm going to set my gap to 0.032. It just slips in, so now my gap is set. Make sure that's tight. Hopper back on. There. Now, does it work? .032. All right, I'm gonna go with that. Okay, so no stress. Just had to do a little adapting, a little adjusting, literally, a little cleaning, and now we're back on track. But my strike water temperature, I turned the pump off, so it dropped 10 degrees. So I'm gonna have to bring that back up, and then I can dough in. All right, so strike water is back up to temp. I'm going to dough in my grist, which is just Pilsner malt and chocolate malt. I'm going to get my mash paddle instead of my spoon. Why did I grab my spoon? See, these clumps are what you want to avoid. Right there, look at that. Wet on the outside, dry as a bone in the middle, and hot. So the grain bill for this is actually about 93-ish% of Pilsner malt and about 6.5–7% of Carafa 3. That's going to give me my color. All right, I think I'm pretty good. Now if I calculated my strike temperature properly, I should reach a mash temp of about 152. I don't know if the camera picks that up or not. 151.8, 152.6, 152.2. So I set my controller to mash at 152, and the probe in the kettle is reading about 150, 151. You saw the thermopin registered 152 exactly, and there, it just hit 152 and shut off. Now it's going to hold this temperature as long as I want it. So I'm going to mash at least 1 hour. I might go 90 minutes just to make sure I get everything out of it I can. So my mash is done. I mashed a little bit more than an hour, not quite 90 minutes. And now I'm fly sparging, trying to go as slow as possible from a hot liquor tank to mash tun, and then mash tun out into boil kettle. If I do it right, it should go about 45 minutes, maybe an hour. Then we'll start to boil and add the hops to this Amstel Stout. So my fly sparge is finished. I've got just over 9.5 gallons in the boil kettle. My pre-boil gravity is supposed to be 1047. I've got 1050 it looks like. Let me write that down. I'm going to begin my brew day timer. Beersmith. My recipes. Amstel Stout. Brew day timer. Boil. Go. So like I said, 90-minute boil. There are additions of hops at 90, 60, and 30 minutes. Each addition is just 1 ounce of Hallertau. All right, my 90-minute boil is over. I'm going to turn the heat off. Now I've got a little more volume than I'm supposed to have. Beersmith tells me I'm supposed to have just a little bit over 7 gallons, and I've got about 7.25 gallons. Now I could keep boiling until I get my proper volume, but I checked the gravity, and my post-boil gravity is supposed to be 1068. And I have 1070, just a shade over 1070. So that's what I'm going to write down, 1070. Again, I'm using the Quake yeast, and that's how I'm going to start pronouncing it, I believe. This is from Imperial. This is a liquid yeast, and it's A44 Quaking. Now, I believe originally Ron Pattinson's recipe used a German lager yeast. But I still want to experiment with this Quake. All right. Just pitch it right in. This Imperial yeast says no starter necessary. Just pitch it directly into the fermenter. Everything's been sanitized. This is my blow-off bucket. It's full of Star San. It is 10 minutes to 7. I'm guessing that by 10:30, 11 o'clock, I bet you this will be starting to blow off already. All right, so here's the setup. Ignore the flashing alarm there. That'll go away as soon as it raises up in temperature. But I've got my set point at 85 degrees. The firm wrap will hold that because the weather's not going to cooperate and help me out in the next few days. And there's one thing I forgot. It's a good thing I remembered it right now. I forgot to put my tilt in the beer. go. Done. All right, here it is. And I got to tell you, this is without a doubt the most complex, simple grain bill beer that I have ever made. Remember, it's just Pilsner malt, 93+%, and the rest being Carafa or Carafa 3 for the color. And I got to tell you, this thing has changed characters over the last 3 weeks more than any other beer that I have had, other than a highly dry hopped beer that eventually lost some of the hop character. This beer has actually gained character as it sat in the keg, and noticeably. Now, the first pour of this beer, after it had been in the keg for about a week or so, was very unstout-like, at least not like any stout that I had ever had before. It was a very soft, roasty flavor. It had that roasty character, had a kind of a coffee or chocolatey character, but it was all very soft, kind of like an iced cafe mocha or something. Not like a sweet stout either. Nothing like a sweet stout. But it was just kind of mild. Not bad, but not like a stout. The character changes almost with every glassful, and for the better. It's getting richer, it's getting more character, it's getting roastier, but it's not that really malt forward, slap you in the face English stout kind of character. And the hops are light. There's not a lot of hops in it, so it's not like an American stout that has that hop character. It's just very good. I really like it. I'm sorry, but I just don't have the vocabulary, the sensory training to describe what this is like. But if you're looking for a stout that's not in your face with malt character and is not over the top hops like an American stout, it's not quite a porter either. It's definitely not porterish in the terms of ABV. This is 7% ABV. Try this. 1956 Amstel Stout. Holy cow. Who would have thought?
Well,